Connor and I coming to you live in Fort Collins. We're seeing some 60-degree weather, but we've got a little bit of, what do you call it? Is it a fake spring? Is that what they're calling it, Connor, that we had the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's just the way it tricks us. You know, we get 5 good days, 6 good days. I mean, we've almost gotten almost a full week and a half now, it looks like. But I think we're about to hit snow, sleet on Wednesday, I think is what I saw on our schedule. So they always want to play 1 or 2 tricks on us before we hit the true springtime. So, you know,
we're on our way.
Yep, that's exactly right.
That's right. Well, we talked to you guys about things that are have happened in Fort Collins over the past week, happening over the next week, and then city council review. And Connor's going to join in, and we'll give you guys some differing perspectives. But one of the things that jumped off the page to me was Joann's Fabric was closing 500 stores across the United States, part of a bankruptcy restructuring. But Fort Collins was supposed to stay open, but as of last week, Fort Collins address was listed on closure sites. So unfortunately, we'll see Joann's Fabric leave Fort Collins. You're pretty crafty, Connor. What other options are there for people in Fort Collins besides Joann's Fabric? Is it like Hobby Town or Hobby Lobby? Would that be the only other real option?
That's really the only one that I know. I mean, Lauren and stuff, you know, she's probably more the creative one when it comes to that kind of like hobby stuff. And so, yeah, she pretty much goes to Hobby Lobby over Joann's Fabric any day out of the week and stuff. And I think the biggest thing is like, and I think it's kind of a gimmick, but Hobby Lobby does these weird sales where they'll say, 50% off of this week, that week. And so those are kind of the things I think Hobby Lobby's done to like actually keep themselves in the game and actually keep things going on their end. But yeah, I think Joann Fabrics, I've gone in there maybe once or twice for some projects when I went and rebuilt a old jukebox speaker that we had from Lauren's grandparents. We went there to go pick up fabrics and stuff, but you know, it just does not compare to a Hobby Lobby. I mean, even with just the activity and stuff you see inside of them, most people I can see are going to Hobby Lobby. And the one over in Centera that also was on this list as well in Loveland, you know, it's going out of business. And I honestly could tell why every time we drive by, you know, just to go over to one of our favorite sushi places, it's pretty much dead over there most of the time. Just like, what is that one called? Bed Bath and Body Works, or I can't remember what that one was called, but there's another one that was over there. That whole kind of area is starting to kind of go downhill a little bit for those big box stores, and it's just the unfortunate side we're seeing.
So we're not really losing too much, losing Joann's Fabric, it seems.
No, that's exactly right. Right around the corner, at least in Loveland, we have a Hobby Lobby. I know Fort Collins has a Hobby Lobby, I believe, off of Horseshoe. They're close nearby on that side, so there's always a good alternative.
Okay, good. Let's see here. Bohemian Foundation looks like they're going to be building on that site where the Lyric used to be. A 2-story multi-use building, which will be really kind of cool. The rendering's pretty awesome. I don't have, maybe I do. Let's see here. I'll share this screen. The rendering. No, I don't have a rendering that I can show, unfortunately. But it's going to be a 2-story multi-use building. Enlarged green room for the Armory. Have you ever been to a music event at the Armory?
I have not on that side, but I've been to the Lyric in the past. Me and Lauren, when we first started dating, we went there, you know, a couple of times on that side. She kind of likes the small film, you know, genre on that side. So we got to go there a few times, but I haven't really got to explore the Armory on that. I bet it's pretty cool on that side.
Yeah, I went to I don't know what it was. Not opera, but it's kind of a small opera house, really. You've got like the upstairs balconies. It's very quaint. It's very personable, phenomenal acoustics. Just beautiful. It's a beautiful building. You know, Bohemian owns it. They renovated it, but this, the Lyric, which they bought for $2.3 million, this little triangular space down in Old Town. I don't know how big of a lot it is. It's tiny. But it's wild that they bought this building and spot for $2.3 million. So just, you know, you talk about what the value is of, you know, lots and things of that nature when we do comparative market analysis for people in Old Town and Fort Collins comparing lot sizes. But I mean, that shows you the value of downtown real estate, that they were willing to buy this piece of property for $2.3 million, demolish the Lyric to build this 2-story building. But man, it's just, downtown and Old Town Fort Collins, super fortunate, obviously, that, Bohemian Foundation and Pat Stryker are there, because they're just making this area, very beautiful. Think about what was there before, Connor. You had the Armadillo, which was a great Mexican restaurant,
Yep.
Great Mexican restaurant. And then you had the Lyric, which was just kind of a, like you said, kind of a quaint, small little movie theater, indie type films that now you're going to have, you have the Elizabeth Hotel, which is a world-renowned hotel. I believe they're getting some crazy awards, which is not hard to believe if you've ever stayed there. And then you've got this, the Lyric new 2-story building right across the street from, or right next to the Armory. So some pretty cool things that are happening down in Old Town, as always. Moving on, apparently February is Colorado's deadliest avalanche month, and there were 2 deaths, unfortunately, February 22nd and February 20th. But that's not all. It was pretty crazy to hear. After that weekend, there were 16 people caught. After the President's Day weekend, there were 16 people caught, 10 buried, 1 injured, and then 2 died in 2 weeks. So, I mean, I know you're an outdoorsman, and I think you're a pretty avid skier, but my dad's always out there snowshoeing, and it just kind of like gives pause of, man, I guess I've never even thought about the idea that it's possible for me to get caught into an avalanche. How do you get yourself into that situation, and how can you avoid it if you have any insights, Connor?
I mean, the biggest thing on that side is I would always recommend taking an avalanche course. I mean, when I lived up in Montana, we did a lot of backpacking in terms of going up and doing skiing. I did split boarding for snowboard because I was a big snowboarder on that side. And so before we ever got to do any of that stuff, my parents definitely forced me to go take an avalanche class, to where you learn about the conditions, learn about when you're actually going up, checking the snow conditions and making sure that things are stable, actually. And it's a big issue up in Montana where I skied. Big Sky, I know, just had a major avalanche up there, actually on the ski slopes right above where you can actually go out and do some hiking up above it. Bridger Bowl was another big one up in Montana as well, where they had a place called the Ridge Line where you hike up. So it's really once you start going into the backcountry or areas where the ski patrol and groups aren't actually doing active avalanche control, that's when issues start coming up and problems start arising. So people who are going out and doing the backcountry or going out snowmobiling, I know you maybe did that recently, or you're going to be going out and doing that here soon and stuff. But there's just those possibilities that just come up on that side where, if the snow conditions aren't right, you get the freeze and then more snow, fluffy snow, and just a mixture of that. And it's just kind of with how, the winters have been going here in Colorado, even up in Montana. The snow conditions for backcountry are just getting worse and worse over the time. Even when I was a kid, it always seemed like there was always a high risk of it. And so avalanche courses, having a beacon on you, having the tools to be able to actually help your friends out, never going out backcountry, skiing by yourself or alone, makes a huge difference on your survivability. And they have better tools now these days, like avalanche backpacks and suits that you can wear that actually blow up and explode and kind of help you lift yourself above the soil, or not soils, but the snow. And so those are some of the things, if you are going to start really going into that backcountry and getting that type of an experience. I mean, there's so many different things that you can go on, and YouTube is a really good resource to go in and watch. And then also there's a lot of individuals now, even in Colorado, that are going around and doing snow reports constantly on that side. So looking up those resources before you go is just a major component of just being able to keep yourself safe while you're out there.
So don't put your head in the sand, or in the snow in this case, and be ignorant to what dangers are actually out there, but prepare appropriately. Like most probably do, but some, like myself, would go out and hike. I'm like, I'll be fine. But like I did that hiking video in Northern Colorado during winter. I'm like, I'm sure I'm fine, but I guess if I got into a precarious situation, I wouldn't be. And I guess those are the kind of situations you want to at least be aware of and plan for. So going with a person like Connor versus a person like myself is probably a good idea.
I was going to say, do you ever use like the InReach when you go out hiking at all, or does your dad ever on that side, or have anything in that form?
No, it's
No. Okay. You guys are risk
smart.
takers.
I guess so. Yeah, not very smart. Okay. Let's see here. Are you a fan of spring forward, fallbacks, daylight savings, or do you hate it?
No, I kind of enjoy it on that side. I mean, I like having it where you have the ability to have it where it just changes and you can have daylight, sooner and then have it darker during the winter time. When it's winter time, I'm not going out much past the 7-8 o'clock time frame when the sun goes down. And so once the spring time comes and summertime comes, I like starting to see those late evenings on that side to where you can go out and still have that good daylight time. So to me, it really doesn't bother me one bit. But what about you?
Yeah, no, I hate it.
You do?
Mostly because I wake up pretty early and I feel like, all right, as we come up with this time period, like right now, like it's starting to get light when I'm leaving the gym, or generally is getting light or is light when I leave the gym. And then all of a sudden it shifts back to where it's freaking pitch black, again, until it looks like, on March 9th, sunsets will be going around 7 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. But also that means that sunrises are going to be around 7:20 a.m. rather than 6:20 a.m. So kind of like, for me, I'm not a big fan of it, but I know there's some laws and legislation that have passed, but we still have to have like 4 other states that join this to get rid of daylight savings. What's the only state that does not have daylight savings, Connor? What's the answer?
I believe that's Arizona. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And it's weird because like sometimes we're on the same timeline, sometimes we're on the same time schedule, and sometimes we're not. But
so you would just like it if we just sat there and stayed the same all the time, then?
Totally. I mean,
okay.
What's the reason of moving the clock? It's like an artificial change of the clock, and I believe the theory behind daylight savings was to help electricity, so that the sun was out. Farmers, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I believe it was to try to save electricity costs for the city or individuals or something along those lines. If you haven't yet, you have until March 5th to fill out your input for the Civic Assembly. I don't think you're able to, Connor.
Nope, not because I'm in Loveland.
You have to have a Fort Collins zip code to be able to fill this out. So if you live in Fort Collins, you have until March 5th. I filled mine out last week. It's not a bubble in type thing or drop down menu. It is it does take some time. And the Civic Assembly, which is going to be, I think, 30 individuals randomly selected in Fort Collins, they'll see these answers and they'll go through it. It's going to be a pretty intensive multi-day deal for this Civic Assembly to then subsequently come up with ideas and options for City Council to agree on. But you have until March 5th to have your voice heard. So, get in there and fill that out and let the town know what you want on that 164 acres, what used to be the Hughes Stadium. Okay, jumping into our City Council work session now. And if you're watching this live, feel free to comment. We had a comment, Austin. Here we go. Austin on law and ethics. I would rather support small corporate like Joann Fabrics than the oppressive politics corporate Hobby Lobby has against women's reproductive rights. I don't have much to offer on that. I don't know what their political stance is. So, but if that's something that speaks to your heart and you're aware of all that, then Joann Fabrics would have been a better option for you. So feel free to jump in and comment, ask questions, love to engage. But we are going to jump into our City Council work session where they looked at mobile home park. Let's see here, mobile home park oversight program, MPOP, and then we got our water efficiency program, our WEP. They all these dang acronyms, man. It's just hard to follow. But the water efficiency program, and then finally, we'll jump into what is probably one of the more exciting developments in Southeast Fort Collins over the last 20, 30, forever. I just think it's going to be a really cool deal for Southeast Fort Collins, which is the Southeast Community Center. But I will share my screen. Actually, I'll share my screen in a second. We'll start with MHOP. Okay, so It's a mobile home park oversight program started in 2019 and actually got some really negative press on the news channels. I'm not sure if you ever saw it, Connor, but at one point they were taking like 600 days to resolve complaints. And it was 600 days to where, and it was, the reason why that was, is there was only 2 individuals on this oversight program. And so since then they've ramped up their personnel to 14. And I believe their current days to resolve these are like 39. Some take longer, some take less, but they do have it going quite a bit more. In Fort Collins specifically, there's approximately 3,500 homes in the city, which actually almost meets the 4,000 subsidized affordable housing units in Fort Collins. So for a total of 7,500 affordable units in Fort Collins. So let me share my screen. I want to show some of the. Can you hear my kids just pounding away upstairs?
I was gonna say I can definitely hear them on that side. Someone's got some vocals.
Golly. All right, we'll share the screen. So this was complaints by category between 2020 and 2024. What's wild was like when the city council was talking about issues, like a big issue was water. They were saying that people go out, like there's water breaks and leaks and people going out without water. And they were saying that they were trying to talk to like community centers to allow for people who live at these mobile home parks to come shower because, while the requirement is that you have to have safe drinking water, that doesn't include showers. And I was just like, man, that's so, I think sometimes I would say for me personally, I definitely live in a bubble of like not realizing some of the challenges that these, mobile home parks and people face. Now, there's plenty of other issues. Now, what's interesting is these are complaints, but not necessarily what become like violations. And only a fraction of there was 300. Let's see here, 300 or so. I don't know I think maybe it doesn't say. There was 300 or so complaints, but only about a handful of those become actual violations because a lot of times they come together and they work on them and figure those types of things out. But I just was like, man, water is pretty crazy. Here is where the mobile home parks are in Fort Collins. Now, let's zoom out. In Fort Collins, so the gray shaded area is our city limits. The blue boundary line is our growth management area. So within our growth management area, I believe there's there's total 3,500 mobile home sites, 1,400 of which are in the city of Fort Collins, 2,100 are outside the city. This one over here, Connor, I can't remember what's that one called, South Taft Hill, or
is it the one right off of Harmony?
Horsetooth and Taft.
Horsetooth and Taft.
Right as you're going south, probably to your house in Loveland. But anyways, these are all of our mobile home sites here in Fort Collins. The majority of the mobile home sites are in what would be called District 6, City Council District 6. And there are 10 in the city of Fort Collins, 10 mobile home park sites, and 9 of which have been zoned mobile home. Now that happened just in the last couple of years where the city added a zone, the mobile home zone, so that these don't become just land banks. Yep. And they're essentially protected mobile home parks now and into the future. So because that was a conversation between some of the city council members was like, hey, obviously we want to make sure that these residents are protected and that they have the rights and things of that nature. But we also need to make sure that mobile home owners don't get fed up and sell it and then redevelop it. And then Emily Francis said, well, that can't really happen anymore because they've been zoned mobile homes. So there can be these parameters. And while they, from my understanding, are pretty big money makers, can still kind of abide by guidelines to provide basic, amenities, whatever what have you.
No, I definitely agree. I think it was a good move to make them a mobile home park as a zoning on that side because things can always change, and there's some places just like the one off that you were just talking about off of Taft Hill and Horsetooth. There's also one that's off of Harmony that's going up towards Horsetooth Reservoir, and some of those ones where at some point, I could easily see one of those individuals who own those mobile home parks because of the location of those, how valuable they will become at some point, being right along the foothills. It can completely change that area. And if they wanted to sell them at some point, they could easily go out and do that at some point. And so it makes a big difference. And then having it zoning for, because it is some of our more affordable housing that we do have here in Fort Collins, it does protect that as well, knowing that it's not just going to be torn down for multi-million-dollar buildings.
Yep. Yeah. Where the King Supers is on Southeast Fort Collins, where College and Harmony used to be a big mobile home park. And it was extremely valuable land that, was redeveloped. And I want to show you this one too. I mean, talk about valuable land in Fort Collins that is protected now. Let me show you this one. Is this Harmony Park? I mean, it's a massive plot of land. This is Horsetooth, Harmony, Ziegler, and Timberline. And I mean, we're talking significantly, extremely valuable land that is protected now that will always be mobile homes. So, that's great. And we'll get it down to the Southeast Community Center because one thing that these community centers do is serve some lower income individuals, and they kind of talk where affordable housing is, and the Southeast Community Center will serve some of those individuals that might not be able to go to Northside Oslon Center or the Senior Center, what have you, for those opportunities. So here's what City of Fort Collins is proposing, or they're considering. They're saying, okay, the state has these 14 individuals. What can the city do to make sure that violations are happening, proactive things, but everything comes, at a cost. So here's some low cost type deals: education, improve, coordinate strategic planning for mobile home park work in Fort Collins. Some of these mobile home parks don't have connections, and connections is a huge asset to Fort Collins. So how can we provide affordable, low income, or affordable, low cost internet to these areas, because we live in a digital world, and making sure that they're able to have some of these, and then some potentially code changes as well. These are all things that the City Fort Collins City Council is considering. All right, something that quite a bit about is water in Fort Collins, and water. We live in a high desert, and while we do get some good years like 2023, some phenomenal water. And what do you, out of curiosity, do you know what our watershed's at right now?
I have not looked at that in a while, so I actually would not be able to tell you on that side.
I think last time I looked at it, we were at 95%. So not too bad, but that was before a lot of snow. So hopefully our watershed's, pretty solid this year. But we live in a dry air desert. And so we got to plan now and into the future. A unique aspect of Fort Collins is how many water districts we have. We've got over 5 water districts within Fort Collins proper, and then 5, our growth management area. I'm in the Fort Collins Loveland Water District. Are you in the Fort Collins Loveland Water District, Connor?
No, I am just straight Loveland on that one.
Okay, you're Loveland.
Yep.
City of Fort Collins is in orange, Elko in green, and then we got West Fort Collins Water District in yellow. And actually, a buddy of mine, crazy enough, has a house, 2 houses actually, in the Sunset Water District. Just this tiny, tiny little district. But it was funny. I went over to his house, and he was having to add water lines because he took one property that had 2 houses on it, subdivided it into 2 houses, both an acre big, maybe 2 acres, but needed to get water taps to each of them. And he was complaining. He's like, man, I'm a part of this small, tiny water district. And I was like, no way. Are you Sunset Water District? And sure enough, he was. So City of Fort Collins has multiple water districts with different billings and water allotments. And the city of Fort Collins utility for water serves about 130,000 residents. Let's go down to 73 here. What do I want to show here? Oh, I thought this was kind of interesting. Treated water use versus our population. So here's our population up to 2014. So obviously we're much higher then, but our water use, million gallons, MG is million gallons, actually started a decline. So we've kind of had a water efficiency program in place, I think since 2015, yep. But definitely attention towards lowering our water consumption for the last many years.
No, I think the biggest thing on that side is that everybody's starting to really focus on the cost of water. I know Fort Collins water is going up again this year on that side. And for most of us, I mean, just from statistics from the Colorado State University, 50% of our water use here in Northern Colorado is going towards outdoor use. So landscaping, everything like that. And so, from new builds to existing builds, everybody, the majority of people are going either to xeriscapes where you use very little to no water, or a lot of individuals, because of rebates and other things that the city of Fort Collins, Larimer County do offer as well, is going in and doing an augmentation or a audit on your irrigation system to see what kind of water use you're actually using as well. So people are really focusing on that because the cost of putting water out on your yard, for a good chunk of time to get it down at 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, that really starts eating away at your budget every year. So even for me on that side, one of my big plans for this year is to take out a big section of my yard, rock it in, and then throw a couple trees into it. And so, everybody I think is kind of going that direction. And just, probably based off of my clients that I've worked with in the past and maybe yours, most people who are going in and buying homes, I have one that's purchasing one up in Loveland right now where they're saying, hey, this has a beautiful front yard, a beautiful backyard, but what they're doing is they're going to go in right away and landscape it all with rock and put just native plants or plants that use very little water so that they can really reduce that cost on themselves. And so I think that's playing a major role, other than just this efficiency thing that Fort Collins and Northern Colorado is trying to put in place as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's, I can't remember who it was recently that they were talking about, you can behavior and then also legislate your way towards changes that you need to have happen. And, so some of that becomes on behavior changes, a desire to decrease your water use, but also then requirements from the city, municipality, county, to try to help those changes along and kind of find a good balance between the two of those. The water efficiency program's goal, this was back in 2015, was to be at 130 gallons per consumer by 2030. We're not going to meet that goal, but we've done quite well. And so they're now updating our water efficiency program for our goals up to 2040, which I will get to show you right now too. See all this shit that it's crazy. I couldn't imagine being a city council member and having to read that on a weekly basis and holding a full-time job. I watch this. I don't read through the entire packet, but I watch the city council each week and then city council work session each week. And I'm just like, you guys have to be dialed in. And like, this is just a lot of information.
Yeah, it takes at least minimum 4 hours out of your day, I know.
Okay, so here is kind of like what City of Fort Collins is at right now. So it's the utility servicing 139,000 people. Our goal in 2015 was 130 gallons. We're not going to reach that. Here is what our current usage is. 6 billion gallons a year, 18,500 acre feet annually, annual treated water use. That doesn't include non-potable water. And so they're updating our goal, our water efficiency goal. And then I go down to 249. Okay, so there's two goals that they've got going. They want to decrease our annual water use by 3% annually up to 2040 to save about 225 million gallons annually by that time. And then also they want to bring the city, and they kind of in line with this 3% is what they said. They don't have an actual number, but the city builds resilience by improving outdoor water efficiency across its public lands, essentially. Like, so redeveloping some of these parks and medians and things that are a little bit more water efficient than what they currently are. 249, let's go 256. Here's going to be the strategies of how they're going to do that. So HOA, large turf transformations, rental incentives. Some of these, when I hear them, I feel like it's a drop in the bucket, but I guess maybe all of them combined make, a pretty big impact, because, there's low efficiency toilets flushing and faucet restrictors that they would put on these rental incentive programs that they would come out and do, like very, the city would come out and do these installations for pretty affordable, but everything counts. Grants, land use policies, and developer incentives. So to your point of developments, now unfortunately some of these become kind of concrete jungles that we've seen, and from there, native grass and things of that nature still needs upkeep, the cost. So there's definitely some balancing that'll have to happen. Daytime watering limits, commercial water use benchmarking. That's our benchmarking for the commercial buildings in Fort Collins. And then again, city areas of opportunity, retrofit city facilities for pilot programs, examples of how other developments can do that, improve water loss tracking, increase line repair, and then consider equity and project prioritization. 264.
Yeah, and I was just going to go off what you were saying, just like with the toilets and stuff. I mean, here's the three major ones that pretty much take up a good chunk of the water. Showers is 11% of our water use in northern Colorado. Toilets are 12% use. Closed washers are 9% use. And then leaks are 5%. So some of those, I mean, it adds up over time on that side. And like, that's one thing that when I was going to Colorado State University and part of the turf program over there, one of the biggest things that they ran into when we got to go talk to the facility managers on that side is just how much waste that they end up using just from the fact of irrigation leaks. I mean, they only have such a small crew, and they say by the time they get even close to getting finished with fixing leaks on their place, more leaks start to happen on other places where they already fixed them by that point. And so it's this weird, endless cycle that we go through. And I know that happens in HOAs, it happens for the city. And so just trying to create that efficiency over time, I know just little piece by little piece will make a difference. And I think trying to hit that goal in 2040 could definitely be possible if we start kind of focusing on those major areas and kind of foregoing some of those other areas that we see where it's maybe not as big of an impact.
Talk to me about, like, okay, so here's where my mind goes of, like, I feel like technology needs to come much further, because isn't the majority of water used by ag?
Huge chunk of it is used by ag on that side. I mean, just for example, the Loveland, the Lake Loveland on that side is actually owned by a bunch of agricultural groups out in Greeley. And so that whole lake goes from being completely filled to almost empty to a mud pit at the end of pretty much by August by that point. And so most of it is being used by agriculture for corn.
Is it like upwards to 80% is like our water use is like agriculture and 20% is residential?
That's pretty close to what it was when I was going to school. I think they were saying it was like 78% back, and that was back in 2018. So it could have changed by now, but they are trying to focus on some of those, technology to try and limit that, and trying to put technology into the agricultural fields to try and produce fruitful crops, but without just wasting water. I mean, when you go out, Lauren works for RDEC for the seed company out there. They do a bunch of research out there on corn crops, on wheat fields, and they're constantly trying to manipulate and figure out how they can keep that moisture in the soil without losing it to evaporation and a bunch of other factors that do cause waste of water over time.
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean, obviously, how important agriculture is to our world, but I'm just all right. Say hi and then go. How important water is to our world and agriculture and everything like that. But I feel like that's where we should be spending time, effort, and money. Is like, how can we maximize that water when it's such a huge proportion of our water usage versus focusing on the 20%. That, you know, we can have a water saver shower head that's going to save 11% of the 20% of the. So, but again, that could be a little bit short-sighted. That, you know, like everything, droplets saved matters. But hang on, okay.
Dad,
Please, thanks.
Luis is only saying that I have only strawberries, and I only want strawberries for lunch, and she said, I'm not going to give you a snack.
Okay, why don't you go up there? I'll be up there in a little bit. Can you shut the door behind you?
Mm-hmm. She's going to text you about
Okay.
Lola's only eating strawberries.
Okay, shut the door, please. Kids home from school today, so that's what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here, okay, so we have two other water providers in the area, Fort Collins Loveland Water District. Here are some of their goals. Lower water use by 9% over a 10-year planning period. And but what's crazy, they expect demand to increase by 50% by 2033 because of all the development happening in the area, especially in that south side of Fort Collins, north side of Loveland. And then Elko is achieve water savings goal of 172 acre feet per year in 2033 relative to the baseline. Don't even know what that means, honestly. Population expected to triple by 2045 in that Elko area, northeast Fort Collins, which will be 60% built out at that time. I just thought those were kind of some interesting facts to look at. All righty, now let's jump into our Southeast Community Center. Connor, how much do you know about the Southeast Community Center, first and foremost, before we dive in?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been hearing about it for quite some time. I think they started back in, I believe, 2020, just having the conversation. It might have been even earlier than that. I know that it's supposed to be what do you call it? It's a program between the city of Fort Collins, the Poudre School District, and the Fort Collins libraries to hopefully bring a community center that's on the south side of Fort Collins, where I think it's kind of a really desirable area. I mean, Loveland, for where we live, we have the Chilson Center. They obviously have the retirement community center down off of Center in Fort Collins. But I think that south side is kind of really limited on what is around there location-wise to go out and enjoy and be able to provide resources for individuals to be able to go somewhere, to be able to go for some library information, or to have a local pool nearby that isn't part of an HOA. And so it's something that I know they've been working on for a long time. I know that they're starting to do major plans here come 2025 and 2026 in the hopes of getting it kind of ready to go and built by 2028. And so that was some of the information I followed over the last, couple of years on that side, just seeing how it's been developed. And I really like the location that they chose and stuff. It's a 10-acre property that was owned by the Poudre School District that was voluntarily given up by Ziegler in that area.
Well, voluntarily, it's worth $3 million, and they said this is our contribution to this plan so that we can have access to it. So yes, voluntarily, but very important land. Again, $3 million for 10 acres. So $300,000 an acre. It started 2015. It was a ballot measure from the CCIP Community Capital Improvement Project. So that's a tax, and they were saying, you know what, we're going to pass this. And then it kind of got it supercharged when we passed our 2050 Parks and Recreation tax in 2023. But yes, to your point, you're spot on. Poudre, the Poudre Libraries, City of Fort Collins, Poudre School District, all playing a role in this. And here's where we're kind of like, currently estimated opening, like you said, 2028, construction starting end of 2026, beginning of 2027. And then hopefully by next quarter, we finalize our scope and budget. So we're going to see 4 different options that were proposed and the one that was recommended. And then they'll get City of Fort Collins input, after that. Here's what we were talking about a little bit earlier with where our affordable housing units are on the south side of town. So Horsetooth Road, in my opinion, center of town needs to be moved, maybe, because I guess of all the the development in Northeast Fort Collins, but center of town is Prospect and College. But I'm like, man, at minimum, it should be College and Drake. Feels like that's more of like the midpoint of town with how much growth has happened on the south side. So I feel like they need to have some I'm sure it would mess up so many things as far as how they've done things over the years. But anyways, on the south side of town, purple dots are rental. This is actually being built right by my house. This is care housing.
Yep.
For future units, and then I guess this is going to be in a mobile home park right here. Big development. I think that's called the Sunshine Community Center over here. This mobile home park on College and Trilby. But there's just there's not any options for community centers. So that's where this is going to come into play. And then in the long time future, the Northeast Community Center out here. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Hey. Walk me and everyone. Get out now.
Uh-oh. Oh, there we go.
It's playing. Sorry about that, everybody. But we got the Southeast Community Center happening. Basically, like you said, it's going to be breaking ground here shortly. And then in the very long-term future, the Northeast Community Center, because, we just passed this 2050 sales tax that essentially provides funding for all of these parks and recreation facilities that we have in Fort Collins. And there wasn't enough funding for how much work they take. And now we're going to be building on $200 million facilities. Here were the 4 options. So this was the most affordable option, $51 to $61 million, 40 to 50,000 square feet. Really what it's missing is a gymnasium. So there's not a track or gym basketball courts. That was not recommended. Option 2 was not recommended either. And I can't remember what they were missing on this one. What was the compare contrast here? Licensed daycare. I can't remember what the difference was on these two. But then the difference on the last one was an outdoor or an indoor recreational pool. So this is one that they did not recommend. They're recommending going with this 64,000 to 74,000 square feet, $68 to $80 million. And it looks like a pretty awesome space. There's going to be a creative, makers area. And then there's, indoor pools, 2 courts, walking gyms, fitness centers, licensed daycare. It just looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. And there's some kind of renderings as we get down here. Here's kind of the lazy river that will be on the outdoor pool, conference rooms, cafes, a maker's area, and then, the cafes, like we said, and then an indoor-outdoor use as well. So something pretty exciting coming to the southeast side of Fort Collins.
No, I was going to say that, living over in the Parker, Colorado area when I was younger, that's probably one of the biggest things that I saw different wise is like over in Parker, they had a lot of these community centers, just scattered all around. And I think up north here and stuff, it just seems like it's been pretty minimal. They have some in just very small spots. But being able to have something like this, I think really brings community together. It really provides a resource that's been missing up here for a long time. And I'm just excited to see that. I know you, for your gym and stuff that you go to, you have a basketball court, I believe, in the pool and all that stuff. But a lot of the stuff over in the Loveland area and a lot of these other gyms in Fort Collins also don't have those kind of amenities. So it's going to be really cool to finally have a place where people can go together, have pickup games. That was one thing I really loved about CSU, the gym there and stuff. There was always basketball pickup. There was always people over at the pool hanging out. There was also the workout equipment, but also having an area for, like Loveland, for example, has, the workshops that you can go rent out, but being able to go to a place and put together a meeting together and have like a group things like pottery maybe, and just expand what Fort Collins really has to offer for people so that you can kind of get a more diverse activities, especially for these winter times and stuff. I mean, when you think about winter and trying to go out and do anything during the winter time, there's not a whole bunch of indoor activities that I know about that, you know, would be more adult oriented / kid oriented, where you can kind of go together and do something together. But this, I think, would, you know, provide a really great opportunity here for Northern Colorado to have kind of a good epicenter for fun and activity.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't realize how important swimming was. I'm not a big swimmer myself, but that's a big drive for people, as they wanted lap lanes and pools. But to your point, you know, like I used to play basketball at the Northside Avalanche Center. We just called it Northside at that time. But, you know, having that on the southeast side, being able to pick up basketball games and the pool, the meeting areas, I mean, it'll just be pretty special. We had a client move here from Mexico, and they bought over kind of I think it was like basically Ziegler and Kechter. And we said, you know, just so you know, there's this $100 million facility being built here pretty close to you that's going to have a library. You know, it's going to be, and they were just jazzed and that was, I don't think necessarily what like pushed them over to the edge of like wanting to buy in that area, but I think it was a huge driver for them. And, you know, you talk about Fossil Ridge High School, Twin Silo Park, and the Southeast Community Center, just a really cool area over there for sure. Well, Connor, what do we got going on this week? I've got a couple things that I want to share. One specifically, a daddy-daughter dance in Windsor, Colorado, 6 to 8 p.m. on March 7th. I believe you can still sign up for it. I take my daughter to the Butterfly Kisses dance each year here, and pretty awesome. So that's probably the main thing that I've got going on besides next week, Founded in FOCO. There's a guy, gosh, what is it? I can't think of his name, but he's kind of as a mover and shaker here in town. He does a lot of cool things. I think it's Nick Armstrong.
Okay.
He ran for city council, but now he runs Founded in FOCO. It's basically like you know, entrepreneurship, small startups, networking. It goes on for 4 days at the Senior Center. And I believe it's pretty cool. Some people talking, workshopping, things of that nature. So that's the two things I've got.
Okay. And I pretty much only got, well, two things. And then a third one would be just kind of for all of Colorado on that side. So one is the Colorado Bridal Show is going to be happening up at the Embassy Suites in Loveland. Looks like it's going to be on Sunday, March 9th. So if you're going to be getting married this year, might be a good opportunity to go out and check out some cool new things going there and start planning your wedding. The one that I'm going to be actually going to is going to be the Frozen Dead Guy Days, which I think I talked to you about a couple weeks ago on this show as well, which is March 7th through the 9th. It's up in Netherland, Colorado, where they celebrate. It's just a quirky festival, which has some really good live music, kind of grassroots festival kind of a deal. They have coffin races where people build custom coffins and race down a snowy slope on that side. And they have some really good food up there as well, with a lot of food truck coming out. And it's just a really fun event if you have some time to be able to go up into the mountains. And from here, from Fort Collins, I'd say it's probably about an hour and 20 minutes if you go up through Loveland and then go up to Estes and then take Highway 7 over to Netherland. It's a pretty quick drive on that side, so something fun to do. And then lastly, you know, this was always a thing for me as a kid, is the Harlem Globetrotters World Tour is coming here for 2025. It's going to be coming, let's see what they said, March 9th, and it's going to be in the Wings Event Center. So those are kind of the three.
Is that not like
I'm not sure exactly where that one was at. I didn't get time to look it up, but I just like the last name, the Harlem Globetrotters. So it's just something fun to go to on that side. I'm guessing it's got to be up in Colorado Springs. That would be my guess.
Oh, well, they usually make their way up here to the Budweiser, the Blue Arena each year as well. But maybe they'll be coming sooner, you know, a little bit later this year. But let's see here. The thing that have you ever what's it called? Banana slugs? Is it banana slugs? In like the South, like over in like Georgia, they like basically they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. But I
yes, I know what you're talking about.
I hope to make their way here one day. But you know, I would say, you know, my kids are going crazy, so I better get running, Connor.
Yeah, that is no worries. I know you got a lot of stuff going today, man. Good luck with them.
Hey, appreciate you guys watching today, and we'll jump on next week without as many kids here. All righty, take care.
All right, see you, man.
Bye.
I thought